terrifying. Just terrifying. Is this fruit.exe? Is that what you youngins like these days? That's what you call this. Back in my day, we would have called this Smile Dog. But now they all got the EXEs and the downloads and the Dark Sonics. Fruit.jpg. I like how I mentioned Peggle in the title and everybody's just like shit talking me in the chat saying Redez kicks your ass. I'm very thankful that we have our little jokes. We have our little channel memes. Of course, cue people saying, you know, it's no joke. Redez will gobble you up, bones and all, in a one-on-one Peggle fight. We like to have fun. We like to have a little bit of fun. Yeah, now it's analog horror. It's funny, you know, we probably had what is now deemed analog horror for like a really long time before that term was invented. And now it's like ruined because it's like the most common thing ever. You know? Not really, I mean, ruined is a harsh term, a blanket term. But this art is great. This is by Purplemonium. I don't like looking at the scary ones, but I like the one on the right. I feel that perhaps captures my essence pretty well. Oversaturated, possibly. We're gonna be doing more reviews today. I simply want to get through the list. I'm a simple man. I want to have no outstanding ongoing series on my big spreadsheet, so I'm working on my slightly smaller spreadsheet in order to do that. So I hope you'll join me on this whimsical ride. I don't exactly know what I'm going to do about music, because I feel like I've used a bunch of music from early in my jams playlist already as the background music, which is, I can reuse it, I guess, but I want to do stuff that's later in the playlist, but playlists on YouTube don't autoplay when they're long enough. It's like once you reach a certain point on a long playlist, it just goes, yeah, I don't know how to do that anymore. What am I, a website all about aggregating and viewing videos? Couldn't be me. So, I've already reviewed, I think, is Peggle the arcade game? I think I already reviewed that a long time ago. Yeah. Let's get the list up. I think I don't remember what score I gave it. Let me look it up actually. Peggle. Yeah, Peggle Arcade. I gave it a 2. I gave it a fucking 2. It was not very fun. The best part is when the little voice goes, "Play Peggle," which spoke to me as a content creator. Yeah, I could make a new temporary playlist. I considered that, and then I considered the other fact that I am an extremely lazy man. So I might just, like, play it by ear. Speaking of ear, that's quite loud in mine. Okay. Peggle OST, it's honestly, I mean, damn, that's like honestly a really good idea. Peggle OST. Because that is good background music, and that'll keep us going for like half an hour. Sure. I'm pretty sure this one's, I don't know. We can just listen to this. Why would I need to skip it? Okay. So let's go. We're reviewing. I've got my spreadsheet. You guys most of you probably know the drill. There's probably a few people who are like, what the hell am I looking at? But for once, I feel like I don't necessarily need to explain what the hell this is, because I've been doing these frequently. So let's just get right into it. Let me turn that music up a little bit. It's rather quiet. I wonder if I'm gonna get copyright claimed for like this, you know, classical music. I probably will, but whatever, who cares? It's on the VOD channel. I've been trying to avoid getting copyright claimed, but honestly, it's like, oh, that's loud. It doesn't really matter too much. Okay, Insaniquarium. This is such a majestic song. A blanket statement to put over this whole PopCap section. These are a bunch of PopCap games, and I've explained this in the past, but in case you missed that, PopCap had a bit of an odd business model, very unique in the aughts, where they released sort of gutted versions of their games online for free as a demo, basically, and then all the versions that say deluxe are like the actual version with music and all the levels and all the content and all that. So I think we can basically say, as just like a blanket rule, oh, I did the thing again where I'm in the wrong. I'm on my Grapefruit account again. I have to go to my secret, sinister second account, where I do nefarious dealings in the black market and the dark web. Here we go. So, unfortunately, in Insaniquarium, I'm just gonna put no. Let's just like, I'm too lazy to type a 2-letter word. Let's just put no after basically all the non-deluxe versions of the games. So Astropop, Dynamite. Honestly, yeah, Peggle. There's no music in Peggle. There's no music in default Peggle. So you heard it here first, folks. Grapefruit's reviewing Peggle and he's giving it a no. He's not recommending it. I'm actually shocked that that's all of them. I thought there would be more than that. So basically, these gutted versions, for instance, in Insaniquarium, there's only so many levels. I think it only comprises maybe the first tank. It's been a long time since I've played these, so forgive me if I'm getting a few small details incorrect, but you don't get all the levels. There's no music, which just kills these experiences for me. I would honestly say these are decent free versions of these games if they had music, but they don't. And they also, several of them, I don't know if they're all like this, but I feel like they're lower fidelity too. Like the deluxe comes with like a visual upgrade. So, Insaniquarium default, I will not recommend, and I'll probably give like a 5 or something. Like it's still got some of the compelling nature of Insaniquarium, but Insaniquarium Deluxe, on the other hand, genuinely a great game. I kind of think it's almost like an idle game in a way. It's like a proto-idle game. I guess technically there were idle games that existed before this, to my understanding. But before the big like boom of idle games, this was kind of a similar deal to your cookie clickers or your progress quests or your super adventure capitalist. I may have gotten that name wrong, but you probably know what I'm talking about. This is a very fun game. Birds? Is this just like ambience from the title screen? Birds. This track on the soundtrack is literally called Birds. Play Welcome to Peggle. I don't want to listen to birds. Here we go. How late after that was Cookie Clicker? Somebody said 2011. I'm inclined to believe them. I want to say Insaniquarium was maybe like 2005, 2007 or something. Could be totally off on that. Maybe it was earlier. Anyway, Insaniquarium, genuinely a really fun, cool game. I think, just as a blanket statement over a lot of these PopCap games, PopCap knew what they were doing, and that, you know, as we'll see throughout this list, and as we've seen in my previous PopCap game exploration videos, not all their games were hits, but there came a certain point where they kind of hit their stride, and it was like, boom, Bookworm, Chuzzle, Zuma, PVZ, Peggle, Bejeweled, you know, just banger after banger. They really nailed this really nice, sort of fun for all the family, family-friendly, enjoyable, sort of harmless but quirky style that I think genuinely is just a really great accomplishment in terms of making something with broad appeal while still making something sort of focused and fun and cool and unique. They had a lot of, you know, some of their games are kind of just rip-offs of other games, like Dynamite is kind of just a Bust a Move or Puzzle Bobble rip off to a certain degree. I think Astropop is also pretty derivative of another tile stacking game. I forget the name of it. It's like Magical. What do you guys? Any of you remember what it's called? Magical something. It's on NSO, I think. But they kind of, they had a lot of cool ideas. Some of them were a little derivative, but they were all executed quite well. And I think polish is like the word of the day when it comes to PopCap. Like they had this like amazing sort of, again, accessible style that wasn't like super rigid. They could kind of play around with it, but like everything looked very clean and professional for the most part. And all those like sound effects, the sound design was so satisfying in all those games, and all the kinesthetics that come around to, or that come with games like this kind of arcade style, catharsis centric games. I think they did a really, really good job with all that stuff. Genuinely, I know it's a bit of a channel meme playing PopCap games, but they were legitimately a huge part of my childhood. And I think I'm not speaking from a place of like, rose-tinted glasses or nostalgia bias when I say they really genuinely cooked with a lot of these games, unironically. Insane Aquarium in particular is one of their more unique games. I really struggle to think of another game like it. I'm sure there are other games like it. I mean, there's rip-offs of Insane Aquarium, but it's a little virtual fish tank. You feed your fish, they get bigger, they give you rewards, and every once in a while an alien spawns in your tank and you have to shoot it to death with a gun. It's genius. And I think there's a lot of really fun, sort of simple but not too mindless mechanics throughout the different levels. You got that whole star catcher thing. Like Bug Cruncher and Star Catcher and the Carnivores, and then there's the Ultravore, which I know a lot of you out there are really into the Ultravore. There were a lot of cool mechanics that interact in satisfying ways. It was compelling to me as a child, and it was compelling to me as an adult. And there's just an inherent satisfaction in feeding your fish and picking up ludicrous amounts of gold off the ground, and that feeling of scaling when you, it's almost kind of like getting, a busted combination in Balatro where you're just feeding the flames of this mathematical equation. It's like just basically satisfying. Again, it's kind of got that idle game schmism to it. So I would recommend Insane Aquarium. It's a fun time for kids or adults, frankly. I think Insane Aquarium might be a fun second monitor game. Great music too. I think that's kind of why I'm so harsh on these games, these versions of the games that don't have music, because it's like the music is such a huge part of the PopCap identity, and it's so genuinely good. It's like, maybe easy listening music, but that's not a bad thing. Sometimes I think when games try as hard as they can to appeal to the lowest common denominator and have the broadest appeal possible, I kind of hate it. But PopCap, for some reason, is an exception. Maybe there is nostalgia bias in there. Maybe I am easy on them because of my past. But let's give this, I don't know. Again, if I give any of these games a higher score than like fucking Elden Ring or whatever, really don't think about it too hard. The number is level of enjoyment. As I've said many times. So, I don't know, I'd give this like a 9. It's just fun. It's just fun and good. It's not deep at all. After all, it's a fish tank. Those aren't very deep, but it's a fun game. Now, basically, a lot of the things that I've said just now can be easily applied to a lot of these later games. I will make note of it if they don't have charming sound effects, great sound design, awesome music, a great visual style, etc. I will make note of that if they don't have those. So Bookworm has all those things. Very charming game, very addictive game. This is a game that my mom played a shit ton of. I bought this game when I was a child, and I think I think it was bought for me, and then she started playing it a bunch. And then later I bought her Zuma, and then she played a shit ton of Zuma too. But Bookworm, also really fun, cool word game, pretty sophisticated in its tech, you know, games about assembling words. I shudder to think what kind of programming issues arise, and I don't know if you could, there's probably no international version of this game, or if there is, it would have to be a very involved international port, of course, because it's all about, you know, constructing words in the English language, but I found it to be pretty reasonable when it comes to inputting words. Yeah, you can't put in dirty words or whatever because it's a kids game, but for the most part, it was like just functional. It worked. I know that's a low bar, but again, for games like this, you know, typing games, word recognition games, it's kind of a text parser in a way. That's some pretty sophisticated stuff for, you know, just like a silly arcade game, basically. So fun, satisfying. It's got that PopCap polish. Yes, would recommend. I know everybody talks about Bookworm Adventures, but I've never played it. I guess it's delisted from a bunch of stores and nobody knows why. But I'm out here repping Bookworm Deluxe. It's really, really good. I think it's underappreciated. It's overshadowed by Bookworm Adventures. I think a lot of people don't even know that there is another Bookworm game. I don't know. So fun time. Maybe like, I think I'd also give it maybe like an 8.5. I don't know. It's a little more of, you know, like a mom game, and there's nothing wrong with that, but I would definitely spend less time playing Bookworm than I would Insane Aquarium, that's for sure. Insane Aquarium, honestly, is like one of my favorite PopCap games. Some other ones like Chuzzle, it's kind of like, you know. But Chuzzle's cool too. Okay. Bonnie's Bookstore. This one was not great. This is kind of a proto-Bookworm. This is basically Bookworm minus the deluxe, and also with, and I'm very sorry to say this, a pretty ass art style. It's honestly a very ugly game to look at. It just doesn't look very good. Bonnie herself looks horrifying. I seem to remember her having like she looked like an alien. She had like a really long thin head and like really long like sausage fingers. And I don't think it had music, or if it had music, it was like really lame music. This was one of those like earlier PopCap games that I think was them still kind of like figuring out how to make them good. So it's kind of just a lesser version of Bookworm. It's got theming around various, I think, like grim fairy tales and stuff like that. But none of that really did it for me. I don't think this gets a recommend. Frankly, it was way less enjoyable. It goes to show how much the presentation and kinesthetic design and sound design and music and everything goes into the enjoyment of one of these games, because when it doesn't have that, it's like, this is a pretty rudimentary word game. I assume probably they reused some code, or at the very least concepts, from Bonnie's Bookstore and Bookworm, because it's got the exact same, you've got that like tile of sort of asynchronous rows of letters, and you're trying to connect them together to make words. It's very, very similar, but just worse. Honestly, like a 3. I'm sorry, Bonnie's Bookstore. I really didn't vibe with you. Worst cleavage of all time award. I didn't want to say it, but I do distinctly remember that weird cleavage that, like, it looks like part of her shirt, kind of, but I think it is supposed to be her tits. It reminds me of that, the Venture Brothers scene where they're like, oh man, those were some sad tits. I just want to give them a nice dignified funeral, or something like that. Mournful. She had mournful tits. Sorry, I know that sounds so chauvinistic out of context of the Venture Brothers, and it kind of is. Anyway, watch the Venture Brothers. Don't let that quote represent it. Chuzzle Deluxe. This one, honestly, Chuzzle, as iconic as it is, it's kind of one of the lesser of that like good era of PopCap. It's definitely fun, but it's a little irritating, and I kind of found that it didn't have quite as much depth as some of the other games could possibly have. Maybe it's almost kind of like a Rubik's Cube game where you're dragging the rows. It's kind of like a virtual Rubik's Cube in a way. Very fun presentation, all that, blah, 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 music, blah, blah, blah. Very fun, sort of poppy style. It doesn't have, there's not a lot to it in comparison to a bunch of the other games. It's like either you got stuff like Insaniquarium and PvZ and all that, where there's like structured levels that have different gimmicks to sort of keep it interesting, or there's games like Bejeweled and Bookworm that kind of are just arcade style, but the gameplay itself is compelling enough to keep you playing for a long time. Chuzzle, I kind of feel like, whenever I boot up Chuzzle, I usually don't end up playing it for very long. It's just not as inherently satisfying. But it does have, it has mechanics, it has a little bit of depth to it over time, but I always just kind of feel like when it starts adding in new colors and it starts adding those locked Chuzzles and the big Chuzzles and all that, I kind of just feel like it's the game telling me to stop playing it, which is not a good sign. I don't think that was the intent, but it's kind of like at a certain point I'm always just like, all right, fun's over, time to leave. Chuzzle sounds like a British food that comes in an aluminium squeeze tube. Somebody said it has an odd, mildly sadistic vibe. I think that's true. It does. It kind of does. Lots of cute little details too. I like how if you hover your mouse over a Chuzzle for a really long time, they go like, and they like throw it off. They like throw your mouse off of them, which is kind of feels like violating in a way. It's like I didn't know a computer program could just take control of my mouse for a moment like that, honestly. And then when you click on a Chuzzle over and over again, they sneeze and all the hair flies off of them. And yeah, it's the way it's like they're cute little things. They look like tribbles, but you're killing them. You're like popping them constantly. And their souls, they turn into little Pac-Man ghost eyes and fly into that big bottle. And it's like, man, I know I've said this before, but like, imagine imbibing the Chuzzle flask. What does that juice taste like? Anyway, I'm honestly on the fence about recommending this one. Of the PopCap, like, this is definitely from their, like, banger era. It's just not necessarily one of their best. I'll give it, like, a 7. Honestly, it's, like, it's inoffensive. It's just that, like, it's less playable than the other ones, and I always just find myself getting kind of bored with it. Zuma. This is a banger. This is a good one. This is... I talked about how some of these games are derivative. This one is kind of a ripoff of a former game. I don't remember what it's called. It's called like Color Shot or something. It's got a weird name. I might have even streamed it and reviewed it. I don't remember. Does anybody remember what the original was called? But basically this is a PopCapified version of another game. But they did a really good job with it, you know. It doesn't... I appreciate original ideas, but I'm willing to play something like this that isn't really an original idea. It's just a fun... A lot of PopCap games, I almost said a lot of Peggle games, kind of have their roots in something like Tetris or Tetris Attack, or Dr. Mario, you know, these kind of like tile matching games. In this one, it's kind of a fun spin on that, where you're a thing in the middle and there's a big line of tiles, basically they're balls, marching around you, and you need to shoot in them to make, you know, columns of 3 or groups of 3 or more to destroy them and eventually, you know, beat the level. And I really like Zuma is one in particular where I like really like the presentation. They've got that, I don't know, maybe it could be seen as like culturally insensitive, but it's got that kind of fun tribal kind of Mayan Aztec vibe to it that I really enjoy. Really genuinely like cool art in a lot of the levels. Smoothie Moves, Puzz Loop. It was Puzz Loop. That's the original version, which is not a PopCap game. But I really enjoy all the art in Zuma, genuinely. I love the look. I love how when the row of balls gets close to the end, it's got this like skull mouth, and the mouth just like slowly opens as the balls get nearer. I know it sounds so sexual, and that little like chant starts happening. There's like a tribal, like a menacing tribal chant that starts playing over the music when you're close to dying. That stuff is so cool to me. That's the kind of like little details that PopCap is so great at. So genuinely a really fun game. I think my biggest issue with this one would be that it's kind of padded in terms of its length. I did not realize when I originally played it just how many levels there are, and if it was all unique levels, that would be fine. But unfortunately, they do this structure where it's like, oh, you play through all the unique levels, and then you play through all of them again, but at a higher difficulty with like more colored balls introduced. And I kind of don't like that. I kind of feel like you could have optional higher difficulty stuff while still like having a nice concise adventure mode. Like I kind of would have preferred if that sort of stuff was relegated to, you know, a second quest, which is something that happens in PvZ, something that happens in Peggle. I don't know. Maybe Zuma has something like that, but I wish that sort of stuff would have been relegated to a second quest, honestly. So I would recommend, you might not end up beating it, frankly, but it is a fun time for however long you want to put into it. I don't know, maybe some people have the patience to play the entire campaign, but I thought the campaign was kind of overly long. I'll never forget somebody fucking in the comments, or somebody maybe on Twitter, yelling at me, just like somebody was extremely pissed. I'll always associate Zuma with this person who was just like shockingly upset that I didn't finish Zuma. And it was like, we saw all the levels, I just didn't do all the like repeat versions of the levels, but they were like, man, like, why can't YouTubers finish anything? And I'm like, of all the channels and all the playthroughs to make this complaint on, like, really? Grapefruit Zuma? Anyway, Redez did not finish Zuma. That was the frog typing that said that, yeah. So sure, I'll give this like 8.5. Plants vs. Zombies. Now, fellas, Plants vs. Zombies. What a game. This might be PopCap's magnum opus, in my opinion. I kind of think, for me, the true big three are Insane Aquarium, PvZ, Peggle. That's just me. I know Bejeweled popped off more than any of those, I think. Maybe Peggle is comparable, but PvZ is great. It's got such a... I know maybe it's kind of like... it might be a bit dated tonally. It's very kind of quirky mid-2000s vibe, but it's so innocent and inoffensive in that vibe. I think sometimes, you know, you look at stuff from 10, 20 years ago and it has sort of a, you know, of its time vibe, and you're kind of like, this is annoying or stupid. You know, but with Plants vs. Zombies, again, maybe nostalgia plays a factor, but I can still really appreciate it for what it is, despite it having like a bit of like a quirky random humor sort of thing going on. Really? Just the spooky balls sound effect is one of the songs on the OST? Okay. Genuinely a really fun game. It's got really fun presentation, great, like, you know, it's kind of tweeny animation, but I think it works for a game like this. It's basically a tower defense game. It's funny, this song just makes me think of Ace Attorney 2 more than it makes me think of Peggle at this point. At what point in the game does this whole thing play? Why would they do this? I guess all the rest of the stuff on this OST is actually going to be classical music samples. Maybe this was just included on the OST just because they already had, like, the rights to it or whatever. I don't even know how rights work with classical music. Okay, let's move on to Fez OST. This is what I was originally planning to do. And if I have to manually swap the songs, then I have to manually swap the songs. This is a 9-minute long song anyway, so it'll keep us going for a while. PvZ, very fun. It's got that structure to it. It's like the levels change up how you play the game as you go through it, which I really appreciate and enjoy. I love the ramping complexity and difficulty. It's genuinely a game with a shocking amount of strategy and decision-making that goes into playing it, which I really appreciate, and it makes it replayable and you know, deeply engaging. So absolutely, yes, would recommend. Seriously, this one's like a 9.5. I struggle to think of things that I dislike about it. Basically, the Zen Garden. The Zen Garden is too slow and too grindy. I know it's supposed to be Zen. I know that's not very Zen of me to say, but I think it's kind of grindy. I even like all the side content. Sometimes the bonus content in these games, spoiler alert for Peggle, even in the future, I kind of like have mixed feelings about like some of the like non-critical path, like main quest kind of content in these games, but even the puzzle levels and all the little like side things are great. Apparently there's some hidden like, what do they call them? Like the challenge levels or whatever. Apparently there's some of those that are like in the game files that you can mod back into the game that are like normally unavailable. I've always wanted to play those. I might at some point do those, but I've been saying that for literally years, so who knows. Has Gray touched the DS version? I have, but not on stream. I played all the way through it, I think, actually. I think I got it at, like, Value Village when I was, like, 18, and I was like, you know what, fuck it, sure, I've got a DS. And so I played it, and it was fun. The thing that I remember the most distinctly about it was that when I beat the game, and I went to second quest, and then the game started, like, glitching out on me. And it was like I didn't do anything weird. Maybe my copy was just haunted or something. Maybe it was some sort of like hardware error. But it was like when I got to the second quest in Plants vs. Zombies DS, like the visuals started to get like corrupted and stuff. It was like a creepypasta. And I thought it was really cool because I love, you know, glitches in games. But yeah, that's all I really have to say about it. It was mostly the same experience. Almost verbatim, I think. So, very, very fun, very cool, very iconic. I've never played the sequel. I've never played Garden Warfare. I've heard people say Garden Warfare is, and I quote, "peem." I don't know. I don't see myself ever playing it, man. I don't know. Maybe I'm just like cynical, but it's. I mean, it's very different. Garden Warfare is very, very different, right? One moment, I gotta blow. So, okay, Diamond Mine. This is basically the prototype of Bejeweled. Apparently, just as long as we're talking about like trivia about how the various PopCap games are like derivative of other games, I believe the creator of Bejeweled said that there was some game that he found on the web that was literally called like Color Game or something like that he ripped off the idea for Bejeweled from. But I think nobody's ever been able to find the original Color Game. I think it's just like lost media, which is kind of interesting. So most people think Bejeweled is, you know, just basically an original concept that PopCap came up with, but I think even it was based on a different game. We just don't really have a record of it. So, this is basically proto Bejeweled. It's not as fun. It doesn't have that polish. It looks like a Flash game. it doesn't even, I think, have music, or if it does, it's not like, you know, the Kino PopCap in their prime kind of music. So I'm gonna say, as a historical artifact, kind of cool, but definitely, and it's definitely got, you know, that basic level of satisfying Bejeweled gameplay, but it's definitely not worth playing at this point. It's just kind of like a curiosity. Now here it is, Bejeweled 2 Scoop Away. This is, for some reason, the only version of Bejeweled 2 that I played on stream. Shockingly, I was like, did I really never play just normal Bejeweled 2? But I guess this is basically the same experience. It's literally just Bejeweled 2 with an advertisement for kitty litter on the sidebar. Oh, right, the ending part of this song is just like gentle crashing waves. Let's skip to the next one. I always forget that there's just an ocean part of that song. Genuinely, I mean, a pretty funny version of Bejeweled 2. I think there were actually multiple advertisement integrated versions of Bejeweled 2. Bejeweled 2 popped the fuck off. I don't know if it was like a bigger hit than Bejeweled 1, but it was, the whole Bejeweled franchise was a huge deal for PopCap. And rightfully so, it's got everything that's great about all the like peak era PopCap games that I've said before, and the gameplay itself is just fun and interesting. I've played Bejeweled Twist in the past, I think, or maybe I'm just thinking about the PVZ minigame that's based on Bejeweled Twist, but even that one was pretty fun. It's kind of it's very similar to Tetris Attack in a way. Just a similar kind of gameplay where there's a big grid of tiles and you're swapping them around to make sets of 3. Very satisfying, very fun. It's always great when you get a big chain in this game. But remember the subliminal messaging. No, that's 3. That's 3 that has that. We'll get to that. But Bejeweled 2 Scoop Away, it's just a funny ad integration. It also, I believe, when you get a combo, it says like Scoop Away combo instead of just combo. It's like some of the laziest ad integration of all time. So I kind of think that makes it funny. Like, I kind of think, you know, I'm not necessarily going to say, like, I'm gonna say yes, recommend here, but I'm not necessarily saying you should play the kitty litter version of it. It's not so funny that you need to seek it out, especially because obviously it's kind of tricky to get your hands on this version at this point. I played it through Flashpoint, which is the excellent program that I used to play a bunch of Flash games on. It just has some old, you know, I don't know what program Bejeweled 2 Scoop Away runs in, but or what type of program it is, but there's, you know, there's not just Flash games on Flashpoint, there's crap like this too, and it was funny, but I think this recommendation is kind of just for Bejeweled 2 as a whole. I'll be right back, guys. I'm being consumed by the darkness. Okay, there it goes. So definitely a fun game, iconic soundtrack, I feel, Bejeweled 2. And I think Bejeweled 2 had the voice, right? I think it had the voice. The voice doesn't really factor into my score too much, but it's fun. It's another one kind of like Chuzzle, where it's like, it's relatively simplistic, but I would recommend it. It is fun. It's iconic. However, Bejeweled 3, I think, is even better. This is kind of the definitive Bejeweled package in a way. It's kind of just everything about the previous 2 Bejeweled games just mixed in together and more feature-rich and with better graphics, and it's got the voice, and it's got a bunch of weird features. It's got the like binaural beats, I think, in it, and like subliminal positive messaging. You can like turn on settings in the options. This is like baffling to me, that like flash these really subtle, really easy to miss little messages on screen that say like, "You're beautiful," and shit like that. I don't know if they actually say that, but little encouragements, you know. It's very funny, very weird idea, but it's not forced on you. It's not like an imposing, strange feature. It's just like a weird little fun side thing. but it's compelling. It's got more of a story mode, I think, than Bejeweled 2. There's not a story to it, but it's got a little bit more of like a ramping structure, I would say. Definitely a fun game. It's got all the cool PopCap stuff to it. Recommend 8.5. Moving on. Dynamite. This one, it's basically, like I said, it's basically Bust-A-Move, but with dinosaur eggs. It's got all the cool PopCap stuff, great sound design, etc., etc. I'm repeating myself a lot because a lot of these games are very similar. But I don't know. This one's good. I think I like this one maybe more than Chuzzle. It's certainly not one of the like Omega greats, but it's got a lot of cute stuff to it. Cute presentation. I like the little voice that reads out the names of the different like combo types that are named after different eras of history. It's got good music. I like the deep voiced dinosaur that goes boom. That's so satisfying. I can't even get that deep. Fun, satisfying gameplay. It's not the most original, but it's kind of, honestly, this is yet another example of like, I prefer this game to the game that it's ripping off. So like, man, that's the mark of a good ripoff right there. And I never played Dynamite as a kid. I think I only picked it up as an adult, and I was like, yeah, this is fun, this is compelling. Yeah, I mean, it's got all the cute stuff. I like the fun dinosaur theming. I want to say the dinosaurs in this game look kind of jank, early 3D kind of vibe, which is also, I like that. I enjoy it. It might seem a little dated to some people, but I think it's just fun. So let's give this like an 8.5, I would say. 8.5 is such a like hedging your bets. Like, it's a solid game with nothing like super exceptional about it or mind-blowing. I think 8.5 is the most commonly given score on this entire spreadsheet, because that's just where a lot of games fall for me. I mean, particularly games that I seek out playing, you know. And then Dynamite, the non-deluxe version, this is gonna get like, I don't know, like a 5, I guess. It's significantly worse. Wouldn't recommend. Why would you play it? All the deluxe versions of these games are so cheap at this point, I think. Like, how much? I mean, actually, just out of curiosity. Let me just look up, like, PopCap Deluxe. Oh my god, when you look up PopCap on Steam, you get Poppy's Playhouse. Poppy's Playroom. Something like that. Oh my god. Only 3 games show up. Really, searching PopCap and Deluxe doesn't give you the deluxe versions of PopCap games. Okay. What about if I just search PopCap? Yeah. Yeah, they're all like $5. All of them are. Except for Plants vs. Zombies Battle for Neighborville registered trademark, which is $29.99. And Plants vs. Zombies trademark Garden Warfare 2 Deluxe Edition. It's like all the actually like based old ones are $5. Man, Feeding Frenzy, that's one I never even played. It kind of just looks like Insane Aquarium at a glance, but I don't know. Yeah, they're like all $5. Okay. Man, there's Big Money Deluxe. I actually didn't realize that Big Money had a deluxe version. I'm gonna be perfectly honest. I wonder if there's a Bonnie's Bookstore Deluxe. Huh. Anyway, I'm getting sidetracked here. So, Astropop. This one, I think it's called like Magical Stack or something. Does anybody know? Chat had my back when I forgot what Puzzloop was called. Do you remember? I think it's called Magical Stack. That's my closest guess, at least. But that's what Astropop is ripping off. I think Astropop has kind of a rough art style, honestly. This is an art style that is not aged super well. All the characters look like they're on meth. They've got those like huge... They kind of look like the art style of like that shirt that's like anatomy of a gamer, and the guy's like, and he looks really weird, and he's got that big like rictus grin, and his hands are like stuck in like the controller position. They kind of look like that a little bit. Like they look kind of ass. They look kind of like something you would find on DeviantArt. But the gameplay itself is fun. I think even the music is good. It's just kind of a sorting game. You're picking up tiles off the ground and moving them somewhere else, and, you know, again, just making rows, making groups of 3. But they, sorry, I thought somebody had the answer, but they were saying magical stack is when I force a wizard to make money for me. Thank you, chat. It's a fun game. I don't have much else to say about it. It doesn't quite have the same juice that a lot of the like peak era PopCap stuff had, though. So I'll give it a slightly lower score, even though it is satisfying and fun. And of course, the free version of it doesn't have music and has less stuff and blah 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 blah. Honestly, I'll give the free version like a 3, and the real version maybe like a 7.5. I don't know if I would recommend it, honestly. It's right on the cusp of like getting a recommendation, but not quite. Let me just see. Magical stack. Magical Astropop PopCap inspiration. What if I ask Grok about this? God, I love when I search stuff and my own stream comes up. Because what if I should play the version of this, like the game that this is based off of. I swear it's on. Oh man, I'm sorry. It's like, I'm sure some people watching the VOD are like, dude, nobody cares, but I care. I care. I think it's on NSO. I'm sorry, nobody knows this, nobody cares. Nobody even probably remembers exactly how Astropop played besides me, and I totally understand. It'd be a good mobile game, actually. Was it on mobile? It was. It was on Sorrent. A company called Sorrent made a mobile version of Astropop. Weird. Okay. Well, whatever. Wouldn't quite recommend it, but it's pretty fun. I don't know, just give it a recommend. It's a fun game. It's not like getting a recommend on this list is like prestigious in any way. Okay, so Big Money. Apparently there's a deluxe version of this game that I never played. You're never gonna get to hear my opinions on it though, because all I played was the original version of it. I didn't find it terribly compelling. It's another very similar Tetris Attack kind of game. You're swapping tiles to make groups of 3. Man, talking about the specific mechanics of a lot of these games has really illuminated how samey a lot of them are, but I swear, like, most of them, I mean, Zuma's about making rows of 3 of a color, and Bejeweled is, but they're totally different games, you know? Big Money, it's kind of funny, it's kind of got a funny aesthetic to it, but God, I hate this whole music situation. Why can't playlists on YouTube just, like, fucking work? Like, why can't they just fucking work? How hard is it to just make a list of videos that play one after the other? Whatever. It wasn't very fun. I didn't find it very engaging. Maybe I'm just too stupid for Big Money, but it kind of just felt like I was just, like, clicking on shit. In fact, I don't think you even swap stuff. I think you just click on groups of color-aligned things. And then it's supposed to be like, oh, you're like planning, you're like making combos so that they fall into place to make even bigger combos and stuff. I don't think you even move tiles. But I didn't find it, I found it very mindless, very kind of dull. Definitely not one of PopCap's best. Spoiler alert, Noah's Ark is the same way. I'd give it, I mean, it was like basically satisfying to a certain degree. But I don't know, I give it like a 3, especially because it's the non-deluxe version that doesn't have music. Would not recommend. Noah's Ark, I wonder if this ever had a deluxe version too. This one kind of reminds me of a mobile game that I played at one point called Flow. Any of you guys ever play Flow? Where there's just like a bunch of colored dots on the screen and you're trying to connect them with like lines, basically, without intersecting any of the lines. It's kind of like witness puzzles in a way. And it's not the exact same type of thing, but it has like a similar vibe. Wasn't Flow on PS3? People are saying they played it on the PS3, that's funny. I had it on mobile. I'm sure it's one of those games that has like a million different rip-offs. There's so many mobile games that are like that, where it's like, oh, you know, I've played something similar, but, you know, like a different version. And I'd like to be very clear, I probably played the rip-off version. Yeah, Flow free! No, I played that, Flow free, yeah! The free version of it. Yeah, the amount of time that I spent on the shitter in high school playing Flow free on my phone, immense. Probably truly hours and hours. Magical Drop, that's what it was called. That's the Astropop inspiration, yes. Magical Drop. Magical Stack, what a dumbass. Yeah, and it's a similar thing, except you're using orbs instead of blocks, but it's got the same exact type of gameplay. And maybe that one's more fun too. I don't know, maybe just because it, like, the presentation is the thing that really gets me about Astropop. So like maybe Magical Drop is the ideal experience. Maybe I'll play it at some point. Anyway, it's a Data East game. Data East and Conspiracy Entertainment. Conspiracy. That's funny. Okay. So what are we on now? Noah's Ark. It was not very fun. I don't think it had music. And again, that's probably because there's some deluxe version of it sitting somewhere abandoned on the internet. But this version of it I didn't really enjoy. I didn't really find it too much of a challenge. Maybe I eventually like lost or game overed in it, but I kind of felt like I remember it being piss easy and just like mindless, basically, kind of like Big Money. So would not recommend. It's funny that it's based on a Bible story. That's basically the only enjoyment I got out of it. I'm like a 2. Sorry, Noah's Ark enjoyers. It's gonna be a no from me. Whoa, it autoplayed. Why did it just randomly autoplay? Okay. I'll take that. Yes, please. Okay. It's what you're here for, guys. It's Peggle. This is the non-deluxe version of Peggle, so it has all the same caveats. I also think it has a couple different levels that are unique to this version, which is most of why I played it. But for the most part, it is lesser Peggle. No, I would not recommend Peggle. Peggle is ass. I give it like a 5.5. I give it a 5. It's closer to a 6 than a 4. Peggle Deluxe, however, classic. I think this is part of, again, I think maybe my holy trifecta is Insane Aquarium, PVZ, and Peggle. And Peggle especially because there's so many different versions of it. You got Peggle Deluxe, you got Peggle Knights, which is just basically Peggle 2. I know you've also got Peggle 2, but Peggle Knights was Peggle 2 before Peggle 2. Peggle Extreme is very funny, sort of spin-off, as well as the World of Warcraft edition. And we've even got Pegged on here, which is funny. Lots to talk about with Peggle. Let's just go through it one at a time, though. Peggle Deluxe, I guess Peggle Deluxe and Peggle Knights and Peggle Dual Shot all kind of go together. It's a compelling game. The levels are great. The powers are great. You know, it might not be PopCap's strongest showing stylistically, honestly. It's kind of just a mishmash of like random crap, but in a way, that's kind of its charm. That kind of like makes it endearing. Just the weird eclectic group of characters is just funny. I think tonally it's quite consistent. It's got like ever so slightly dark sense of humor, but mostly just this kind of like kiddie, family friendly, sort of snarky, funny, kind of sarcastic vibe to it. that I enjoy. The gameplay is deeply satisfying, obviously. I mean, you've all have probably watched a video at some point of me playing Peggle and going, oh, I'm coming, oh, gum is coming out of my penis, oh, aren't I funny? So it's, you know, it's a very, very satisfying game to play. Great sound design, great music, blah, 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 blah. You've heard it all before. Would recommend. I'll give it like a 9. It's good. It's not, I wouldn't necessarily call it as replayable or engaging as PvZ necessarily, but it is good. It's good, wholesome, Christian fun. And Peggle Knights is basically just an expansion pack for Peggle Deluxe. It's just a whole second set of levels. I think, honestly, I like the style of Peggle Knights a little bit more. It's got that sort of dream, fantasy sort of aesthetic to it. Whereas the art in Peggle Deluxe was a little more grounded. Peggle Knights, they kind of went crazy with it, which I like. I think the biggest flaw in any of these like main Peggle games is some of the challenges, the side content, the like bonus stuff doesn't really work so much for me. Some of them are just kind of lazy, where it's just kind of like, oh, this level, do this level again, but it has more orange pegs this time. It's like, okay, bro, whatever. And some of them are cock and ball torture as well, which I don't necessarily disagree with the existence of, but it's quite jarring after playing most of Peggle and it being pretty forgiving, and then you get to like a couple parts where it's like, holy shit, this is like fucking impossible. And feels like, you know, even if you get pretty good at Peggle, some of those challenges like the decathlon or the decathlon, which are two different things. One of them's in Peggle Deluxe and one of them's in Peggle Knights. In one of them, they misspelled decathlon. Those could feel kind of like they're just down to random chance. I know they're not. I know a truly skilled Peggle player like Redez wins every time. However, I just didn't, I don't know. I didn't, and it was kind of a blessing and a curse, because it did feed into, when I was streaming these games, the sort of humorous, like, oh my god, he's getting driven crazy by Peggle, like, he's delving into all the, like, challenging side content in Peggle, and he's losing his mind. So it was like, I appreciate that it had that comedic value to it, but at the same time, if I was a casual just playing that and trying to get as much value, bang for my buck out of my Peggle purchase as possible, I'd be like, what the hell is this bullshit? So, yes, definite recommend on Peggle Knights. I kind of like it more than the original Peggle Deluxe. If I could give it like a 9.3, I would. I could, but I think even giving 0.5s on this out of 10 rating system is kind of stupid in retrospect, but we've come this far. We've come this far. Peggle Extreme, this kind of... Actually, let me do Peggle Dual Shot real quick, as long as we're talking about these original Peggle games. This is just a shittier version of Peggle, honestly. I swear to God, the ball physics are different, as well as, you know, it's just lower fidelity. It doesn't really have... There's a little bit of bonus content in this version that's not in Peggle Deluxe, but take it from me, a guy who suffered through it, to see the bonus content. It's really not worth it. Like, there's just a paltry few levels that are, at the very least, kind of interesting and fun, but not enough to justify playing Peggle Dual Shot. Maybe if you're limited to only playing games on a DS, for whatever reason, I don't know why you would be, then maybe, sure, go for it. But it's kind of just a worse, more limited version of Peggle, where the physics don't work as good. This is the one where you talked about Pope come. It's like one of my most famous moments. When the Pope died, I got a ton of comments on that Twitch Scraps that has the Pope comment in it, and which that video got demonetized, by the way, because of that, I think. And all the comments are like, he blasted his last rope. So, you know, thanks for those. Thanks for those comments. I'm gonna say no on this one, fam. It's still, like, basically enjoyable. If if I had never played original Peggle and I had just played the DS version, perhaps as a kid or a teenager, I probably would have had a more favorable opinion of it, but it pales in comparison to the real deal. I give it like a 7. Like, it's still Peggle, but it's just like the worst version of it. It does have something of note, which is there are some tracks in the original Peggle that go unused, at least in Peggle Deluxe, the PC version. Apparently they show up in like the Xbox version or something, but they're also in Peggle DualShot, which they are bangers. I like the unused tracks. They're real good. Peggle Extreme. This is a funny spin-off. It's kind of I think it's a shorter experience. It's not like a full Peggle game, but it's basically like an official Peggle mod pack. Looking at this thing, I could not believe what I was looking at sometimes. The tone, I said like sometimes Peggle kind of has like the slightest hint of like dark humor, and Peggle Extreme is where they really came into their own with the dark humor. On the title screen with like Bjorn with a head crab on him, and his horn is sticking through the head crab and there's like blood coming out of it. I could not believe my eyes when I saw that. And like the stage where the pyro from TF2 is incinerating Jimmy Lightning, it's a Valve crossover basically. So there's stuff from Counter-Strike, there's stuff from Half-Life, there's stuff from Portal, there's stuff from TF2. It's very enjoyable just as like a spectacle, and I mean, it's got all the fun of Peggle in it. It's just a shorter experience, but honestly, I'd rate it like right alongside normal Peggle Deluxe. If you're a huge Peggle freak like me, I guess play it. You don't need to go out of your way to do this one. It's free, I'm pretty sure. But it's definitely an interesting cultural artifact and may shock you. Relax, liberals. Incinerating Jimmy Lightning. It's dark humor. Get over it. And then Peggle World of Warcraft Edition. I don't really care for World of Warcraft, but this is basically just Peggle Extreme, but instead of a Valve crossover, it's a World of Warcraft crossover. I'm not very interested in World of Warcraft. I don't really know much about it, so it didn't really enthrall me too much. But it is funny that it exists. Apparently there is a version, there's like a reverse version of this. Apparently in World of Warcraft, there's a version of Peggle that like runs in World of Warcraft. I don't even know how that works. But I've always thought about like, it's like, that's like the one Peggle game that I haven't played. Where it's, I don't know, it's kind of like a CVS SVC type of deal. Where there's Peggle World of Warcraft Edition, and then there's World of Warcraft Peggle, which are somehow different things. So, sure, I guess I'll recommend this, but I'm not necessarily as enthusiastic about it as the other ones. The Valve crossover is just too funny. Like, that has personal resonance with me, I guess. Pegged, this is a mod for Peggle. In fact, Peggle Dinners isn't on here, I just realized. Peggle Dinners is also good. I would probably give Pegged and Peggle Dinners probably the same score. They're silly Peggle mods. I think... sorry, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Pegged might have been the one where the slides don't really function very well. Sorry if this is inaccurate to the creator of Pegged, if I'm misrepresenting your game, but I kind of feel like this was one where, like, a lot of the slides just didn't, it's like a lot of times in the other Peggle games, when the ball goes on the, you know, the big rows of blocks that are all seamlessly sort of welded together, it slides very well with good ball physics, but I feel like in Pegged there were some issues. Maybe it might have not been a thing in Pegged, it might have just been, because I've also played just a bunch of Peggle Knights custom levels. It might have just been in some of those custom levels. So sorry if I don't remember that correctly, but I don't know what to give this one. I give it like it was funny. I mean, it had that like, you know, that like repainted game kind of shitpost energy, and a lot of effort was put into it. They made a whole new set of levels and Peggle masters and animations and shit, various little things here and there. So definitely a high effort shitpost. It's really hard for me to rank repainted or modded games, though. I don't... There's just like an extra layer of like... You know, this is built on the groundwork of a great game already. So how can I rank this as its own thing? And of course, nobody asked me to do this. It's nobody's fault but my own that I've thrust this responsibility upon myself. I don't know, sure. If I'm gonna recommend all the other ones, I'm gonna recommend this one. Ranking, let's give it like an 8. Sure. Peggle 2. This one was pretty fun, actually. It was, this is kind of post-crisis PopCap after they got bought up by EA, which is a shame. But I do think it is basically just a functional, fun Peggle game. It definitely has a different vibe. It's a little bit rancid. Some of the art in this game is just kind of ugly. It's got a little bit more kind of that like crass, kind of like potty humor type of thing. Doesn't Bjorn like fart or something every once in a while, or am I crazy? But there's just a bunch of like gross stuff. Like there's the Yeti that like shakes his butt, and the butt is like censored and stuff, where it's kind of like, this was trying to appeal to young boys. Yeah, Bjorn rips ass, as they say in chat. So that kind of like crass stuff, and like some of the skins. I always remember the Jimmy Lightning skin, where he's like a zombie and his teeth have holes in them, and I was always like, disgusting. It's just like a revolting image. So I don't really care for what they did with the art style necessarily, but honestly, I mean, it's a pretty suitable sequel to Peggle. The gameplay itself is fun. Yes, it doesn't really have that PopCap vibe to it, but it still has pretty decent polish. I like the little sounds. They kind of went a different direction with the sound design on hitting pegs, but I like what they did with it, especially when you're playing as Jimmy Lightning, and it goes like, what? That shit was just funny to me. I like the new Peggle Master abilities for the most part. I thought they had a good balance of like bringing a couple of the old ones back, but having a lot of cool new ones that were creative and fun, and the levels were built well around them. And it's got online mode, which is called like Peg Party, which is deeply funny. And we played Peg Party, and we had a decent amount of fun with it. So yeah, it's a fitting sequel. I kind of, in my head, I think Peggle Knights is like the true Peggle 2 experience, but Peggle 2 itself is actually pretty decent. It's like, it's easy to shit on it for a few things about it, like the aesthetics, you know, that got changed. But I don't know, everything EA touches gets slightly in-shitified, so you can't really blame them too much. It's a fun game. I'll give it like an 8 as well. Sure, I'll recommend it. Whatever. Just fuck me up. And that's it. That's the PopCap games done. We can move on to Street Fighter stuff, and we're damn close to being done with this list, guys. Crazy. Absolutely crazy. What is this song from? Should I add Dinners in there? Dinners is gonna get the exact same review as Pegged, honestly. I can put it in there. Honestly, I kind of struggle to remember details, like what was from Peggle Dinners and what was from Pegged. This song is from The Sun and Moon. This is actually a soundtrack I own on cassette for some reason. And that's a really fun game. That's a game with, you know, perhaps too much content, but really, really fun indie platformer, The Sun and Moon. Go check it out. It's really, really fun. It's any of you who have ever watched My Hero Academia? You remember the guy in that show who looks like Tintin? I forget his actual name. I think Lemillion was his superhero name, where he like he can like phase into solid objects, and gravity is reversed for him while he's inside the solid objects. The Sun and Moon is just a game where you have that ability, and it's really, really fun. Peggle Dinner's finished, I think. I'll give it another 8. Sorry to not go super in detail, but the people want Peggle Dinners to be on there, and who am I to deny them that? I don't even know. This might actually be a hack of Peggle Knights. I'm not sure. I think it's a hack of Peggle Deluxe, though. Anyway, let's move on to fighting games. So this is the Street Fighter series, but also some other stuff. We got like Darkstalkers, Red Earth, Power Stone. I did add the stuff that Bella and I just played the other day on Capcom Fighting Collection 2. So it was Knights, it had the squid. Fuck, okay, well let's change it. Fuck, I hate it! Peggle Knights, well thank you for letting me know. Oh, hold on, put a period in there, you fucking slob. Okay. God willing, we might be able to get through this whole damn list today. How crazy would that be if I actually got caught up on this? Unbelievable. Okay, so sorry, that whole PopCap part honestly was pretty repetitive. This is a brief section where the structure of this whole review thing kind of doesn't work so well because I'm just saying the same thing over and over again, so forgive me. Street Fighter. Holy shit, a lot of games to cover here. I might repeat myself a bit here too, but Street Fighter 1, really genuinely unplayable dog shit. The multiplayer is very boring because there's only 2 playable characters and they are exact clones of each other. You can only play Ryu and Ken. The art style is not great. The sprites kind of look like ass. I think the best quality to this game is some of the backgrounds look pretty nice, some of the like stages, but the sprites themselves don't look very good. The sound effects are kind of terrible. If you ever hear the hit sounds in Street Fighter 1, I always said they kind of sound like you're punching like Tupperware. It just sounds awful and grating, especially when you're getting your ass beat by the extremely difficult CPUs. The main meat and potatoes of this game is definitely the single player campaign, and it is excruciating to play through. This was before they really figured out even slightly how to make inputs lenient, so you've got to be like a fucking robot to input Hadoukens and Shoryukens and Tatsumakis, which are the only special moves that you have access to in this game. Nobody's out here defending Street Fighter 1, so I don't need to like treat it with care and be gingerly treading around its legacy. Everybody knows this game's kind of ass, but it did pave the way for Street Fighter 2, which did a lot of stuff way better. It's genuinely just a really miserable experience to play. It's honestly like a 1 out of 5, a 1 out of 10 or something, I don't know. Let's give it like a 2, actually. I don't know. It was enjoyable from like an anthropological standpoint. It was like, this is the origin of this monolithic series, you know? So honestly, maybe my enjoyment is actually like more maybe like a 3 because of that factor, but even then, it's so excruciatingly difficult and unfun, and the controls feel like ass, and it's impossible to do supers or specials. Supers don't exist. Would not recommend. It's just an interesting thing to look at in terms of gaming history. So, Final Fight. This is actually, you know, I've shit-talked beat-em-ups a lot in the past. This is actually one of my more favored beat-em-ups. I enjoyed it for the most part. It's got a fun style, it's got good sprite art, it's got satisfying controls. It's not, you know, a lot of beat-em-ups don't really have a lot of depth to them, but it is basically fun to walk around and punch dudes in the face. I felt like this was one of the less unfair beat 'em ups. There's some beat 'em ups that I play, like the Battletoads beat 'em up, where I'm just like, this is just fucking bullshit. I can't play this. But Final Fight felt accessible, possibly because it's one of the earlier actually good beat 'em ups. Yes, chat's popping off about Hagar. Hagar's awesome. Guy and Cody are also awesome. I like that the different characters actually have different moves. Not a lot of beat 'em ups do that necessarily. Maybe they do, I don't know. But I kind of enjoyed the variety in the characters, although I'm always going to pick Hagar if I can. It's got a fun sort of Warriors kind of style, like that movie from the 80s, Warriors, not the cats. Are they cats or are they owls? What are those books called, Warriors? It's not that. There's no furries, as far as I know. But it's got a fun sort of campy 80s style. I like the progression of the story. I like the different areas. I like all the little stage gimmicks. And this is also, of course, the origin of many an iconic Street Fighter character. Guy and Cody went on to show up in Street Fighter games later on. Unfortunately, Hagar only showed up in MVC3, I think, as far as I know. I guess he was in Saturday Night Slam Masters, which I have not played, but that's kind of a spin-off of a spin-off in a way. Warriors is cats. The owls is Guardians of Ga'Hoole. You're making that up. You just made that up. So, Final Fight, pretty fun. I guess I would recommend it. Especially if you're a fan of, it's like, you have the good path and the dark path when you're looking at, like, Street Fighter history. You can play Final Fight or you can play Street Fighter 1. Final Fight is definitely the more based option. And you got, you know, who else? Fucking Hugo and Relento and Poison are all from this game as well. A lot of iconic characters found their start here. I'd maybe give it like a 7. I mean, it's still a beat 'em up. Yeah, Sodom. Sodom was here. Okay, Street Fighter 2010, the Final Fight. This one was like straight ass. This is a... it's like... this was like very early in the Street Fighter series when it wasn't like an established thing. So you have stuff like Final Fight, which is like a distant tangential spin-off, and then you got shit like this, where it's like, what do you mean this is Street Fighter? This is a shitty NES platformer. I've heard some people say that, like, if you get into this game, it can actually be kind of fun, but from what little I played of it, I admittedly did not play very much, but it seemed like it had terrible, awkward controls and stupid CBT difficulty, and it just seemed totally unfun. But that's maybe if you give it more of a chance, it's good, but I will not be giving it a chance anytime soon. I do, in my time recently collecting for NES, I've been tempted to buy this game many a time. And maybe I'll play it on my EverDrive or something and try to give it a second chance, but I didn't like it at all. I don't think there's a single redeeming thing about it in my mind. So let's give it a 1. The only connection to Street Fighter is that apparently the main character is Ken in the future. I think there was something about how, like, that's not even the case in the Japanese version. Like, it was different in Japan. I think it was still called Street Fighter in Japan. Maybe I'm wrong. Who cares? Nobody gives a shit. Street Fighter 2, The World Warrior. This is the first version of Street Fighter 2. It's definitely not the best version of Street Fighter 2, so I'm gonna go ahead and say no on the recommend, because you basically just want to play Hyper Street Fighter 2, the Anniversary Edition. That's the, like, definitive edition of it. But unless there's another, like, more definitive one, I don't know. I don't know about the, like, HD version on the Switch and shit like that. But I think for the most part, I'm not gonna maybe even recommend any of these except for Hyper Street Fighter 2. Maybe that's unfair. I mean, Street Fighter 2 Turbo, Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo, definitely still fun. Definitely one of the more advanced versions of it. But, like, World Warrior is definitely rudimentary. I don't think there's even a combo counter. I think the story goes that, like, they accidentally invented combos in World Warrior, and then they, in later versions, you know, made a system to keep track of it. I want to say there's not even supers. Actually, let me look it up. Let me look it up, because I don't want to be spreading misinformation. Are there supers in World Warrior? Let's see what the AI has to say. No, the original Street Fighter II, the World Warrior, does not have supers. Yeah, that's what the AI says, but I actually can't really find much information on this. Well, regardless, it's just kind of a rougher version of Street Fighter II with, you know, it's got the classic roster of characters, but in retrospect from the future, that basically just means less characters, fewer rather. This is the game where Chun-Li is inexplicably orange, and there's a bunch of other, you know, classic sort of Street Fighter memes, like, I think this is where Shenlong comes from. You must defeat Shenlong to stand a chance, which is just a mistranslation of Shoryuken, I believe. So, would not recommend, but it's still definitely a fun cultural artifact. Give it like a 7, I guess. Whatever, I know I gave Final Fight a 7 and did recommend it, but logic has no place in these proceedings. Super Street Fighter II Turbo. This is just a later version of Street Fighter II. It's, I think, the last version before this Anniversary Edition was made. This is like the last one that's considered like part of the original set. So I think I will actually just say like recommend this. I don't know. The recommend is such a like vague term too. It's like if you see this at an arcade, sure, yeah, it's fun. Play it with your friends. But it's got more characters. It's definitely more balanced. I'm not, you know, an expert on game balance, but you can definitely tell even as a casual player that it's got a little more polish. It's got more characters. The newer characters are like higher quality sprites in my opinion than the older characters, but that also kind of adds to the charm. It's got turbo mode, which I think is deeply enjoyable. There's something kind of fun about slow Street Fighter 2. But turbo mode is also awesome, where it just speeds up the whole game, makes it feel a lot more sort of modern, I guess. Let's give it like a 7.5. I'm still not the biggest fan of Street Fighter 2. I'm just, you know, just a generalized statement over this whole fighting game section is that I am not a fighting game guy by any stretch of the imagination. So take all my opinions with a grain of salt. I am not qualified to talk about these kinds of things. This is just, you know, as we know at this point, my personal opinion. Looking for music to play. Now that that is done. SpongeBob SquarePants Super Sponge? Say no more, fam. This music's awesome. Okay. So Hyper Street Fighter 2, the Anniversary Edition, it's just got everything from all the previous versions, and I think it's got this whole thing where you can select different versions of characters. There's like an insanely huge, diverse roster, because it's got every classic Street Fighter 2 character from all the different versions, and then it's got literally you can choose between, like, you can be M. Bison from World Warrior, you can be M. Bison from, you know, the new Challengers, you can be M. Bison as he was in Super Turbo, which is, I think, is a really cool feature to have. I wonder how, like, tournaments even treat this game, because it's like, surely there are some versions of characters that are just outright banned, right? Maybe I'm wrong. I guess, I shouldn't say M. Bison in the World Warrior, because he was relegated to a boss character in World Warrior. So, Anniversary Edition, definitely the definitive edition of Street Fighter 2, but honestly, for me as a casual player, I'd give it the same ranking as Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo. It's definitely, like, I would definitely recommend it more. If I could do like a 7.8, I would. It's closer to an 8 than a 7. Let's give Street Fighter 2, yeah, Rainbow Bootleg. Let's give this a look. This is a hack of Street Fighter 2 Champion Edition. It's kind of, I want to say this is like one of the oldest shitpost hacks of a game. It's kind of like, this is like a proto, you know, this is the distant ancestor of shit like Peggle dinners and Pegged. And it's funny and kind of, you know, it's a very kooky version of the game. Apparently, there was a way to like swap between characters on the fly by like hitting select or hitting the like insert coin button or something like that, which was really funny. I remember you can spam, there's a bunch of different ways to like spam Hadoukens that seek onto your opponents. It's just like a super broken, it's kind of similar to those mods of Smash 4 that I played, like Trash and Chaos, where all the characters' abilities are just cranked up to 11, totally unbalanced. It's got that same kind of philosophy of like, if everyone's broken, then no one is. It's fun for a little bit, but honestly, it's certainly not. I don't think it has the same longevity to play as something like Trash or Chaos. And again, this is just my personal opinion as a non-fighting game player. I didn't find it super enjoyable, but it was just kind of funny to look at. 6. Street Fighter 2 on the Game Boy. This is a competent port of Street Fighter 2. This is another one kind of like similar to Peggle Dual Shot. If I was a kid back in the day when this was being made and I had a Game Boy and I really wanted to play Street Fighter 2 and I got this version for the Game Boy, I'd be pretty happy with it. Like, it's kind of shocking how well it controls considering you're playing a fighting game on a D-pad. But at the same time, it's definitely like, why the hell would you play this nowadays? Besides just the gaming history angle. So it was fine, but I don't think I would recommend it. There's no reason to seek it out. I don't think it has any like unique content, and it doesn't even have multiplayer. It's just a single player game, which is kind of crazy. Even Street Fighter goddamn 1 had multiplayer technically. Let's give it like another 6, honestly. Just going with what going based on vibes alone, just going based on what I feel in my heart. Okay. Kensei Megura Street Fighter 2. This was a gimmick game. I would certainly not recommend you play this on an arcade emulator. If you find this machine in real life somehow, then sure, play it, fuck it, do it. But this is whack-a-mole Street Fighter, where you hit M. Bisons that poke out of the game board with a hammer, and it makes the characters on screen do combos, basically. There's almost no thought or nuance to it. It's literally just a whack-a-mole game with a little animation of Street Fighter characters. It's not like you need to do anything where it's like, oh, I need to like wait to hit this one until the M. Bison on the screen is like right about to hit me so that I do a counterattack or anything. It's like, no, you just hit the fucking moles as fast as you can. There's really nothing to it besides that. It's a very funny gimmick. I think it's a very uncommon arcade machine. Oh. Bella just called me for like 2 seconds. Hold on one moment. I'm gonna mute. Ooh, Grapefruit has a crush. Yeah, Bella's just on her way home from cards. Anyway, she was like, oh shit, I'm sorry, I forgot you were streaming. So, Kensei Megura, I mean, it's not a very stimulating experience, but it was funny. It was mildly funny. That's where it gets some points. But extremely basic kind of joke game. Okay, the Tiger Electronics games. These are just like fucking terrible, unplayable. They are funny. It's funny that they exist. Tiger Electronics, bless them. They churned out a bunch of dog shit with these little LCD handhelds. It's basically like a Street Fighter Game & Watch. Unplayably bad, though. Both of them were just terrible. it was funny that they talked. I think they had like voice lines in them, which was hilarious. But for the most part, genuinely, I was like playing these and I was like, I don't know how you do anything in this. And like, maybe I should have looked up a manual or something that might have been able to elucidate it, but they're just like so simplistic and rudimentary, and the controls are so ass. It's barely a video game. It's like more of a toy than a video game. I think both of these get like a 1 out of 10. They're slightly amusing, and it was very funny, I think, in retrospect, streaming these. I think that was just like a silly gimmick, but as games, terrible. Fucking terrible. Street Fighter movie. This was not Street Fighter the movie, the game. This was the poopy Street Fighter, you watch the movie and analyze their moves, and it powers up your stupid cyborg character, and then the cyborg fights Ryu. This one's funny. I like that there's, like, this is like my biggest hipster pick for like what should be in the next Street Fighter game. I would love it if this dumb fuck cyborg came back, because he technically is a playable character with a moveset from the past of the Street Fighter series, but they'll never bring him back. I think in Street Fighter V he got like official art alongside like Sawada and shit, and a bunch of those other like forgotten Street Fighter characters, but I'm sure that's the only acknowledgement he'll ever get. Maybe future cameos, but for the most part forgotten. I mean, he's a Shoto clone, so you know. And the game itself, where you're like looking at, it's like there's brief portions where you're basically playing an extremely gutted and stripped down version of Street Fighter 2. That's not very fun. And then there's the whole part where you're watching the animated movie and like analyzing it that was really incomprehensible to me. I didn't really know what they wanted me to do. Huge part of that was the fact that it was in Japanese. I'm sure if you speak Japanese, it makes more sense, but I truly didn't really get what I was even supposed to be doing. Like, I tried hitting the like analyze button when Ryu did a Shoryuken and stuff, and I was like, surely that's the point of this, surely that's what we're doing, but it didn't seem to do anything. So unsure even what I was looking at when playing this. Absolutely would not recommend like a 1.5. Okay, Street Fighter the movie. Is this the... No. The commentary track for the film, this game, and the one below it are based on can be found here. Okay. So this was Street Fighter the movie, the game, and then this is the PS1 version. Street Fighter the movie, the game is basically on par with a bunch of other Mortal Kombat ripoffs of the time. Stuff like Tattoo Assassins, Jackie Chan, Fists of Fury. Honestly, that Jackie Chan game is better than all these other ones, but it's got that same just kind of like crappy Mortal Kombat knockoff vibe to it, but with Street Fighter inputs, and it's definitely hilarious. This is a game that is very frequently pointed to as just being a hilarious, like, self-contradictory redundancy. They made a movie based on the game, and then they made a game based on the movie based on the game. That's just funny. Like, that's pure comedy. And it's of course got a couple of characters that never showed up again in any other Street Fighter game, like Blade and Sawada, and a bunch of the secret characters with the ridiculously difficult codes that are used to access them. There's also, you know, there's a lot of fun trivia about this game concerning the actors involved in mocapping. Raul Julia was dead, so they had to get a different guy to do mocap for him, for the M. Bison character. There's a bunch of other like weird little like quirky details about stuff in the background that are fun to sort of dig into in a Did You Know Gaming kind of sense, but it's not a terribly fun game to play. It's not unbearable. But I also have come to understand that if you're like a pro fighting game player, you can snap this game's balance in twain. It's like unbelievably unbalanced, so take that into consideration as well. Frankly, Real Battle on Film, the version on the PS1, I think is way better, and that's just because it's a lot more based on actual Street Fighter rather than trying to be a Mortal Kombat ripoff. It's still got that same digitized actors kind of look to it, but I think the code of like how the game actually works is maybe even just like straight ripped from Street Fighter 2. Like the game feel of Street Fighter 2 is just on full display in real battle on film. So if you're gonna play a version of Street Fighter the movie, the game, make it the PS1 version. However, I don't really see either of them as being fit to recommend. So take what you will from that. I'd give it like a 5.5, I think. And this one maybe like a 6.5. It was like fine. I don't know. Okay, now we're getting to some Kino shit. Street Fighter Alpha 3, Upper, and Max. These are just slightly different versions of the same game. This is the series that is known as Street Fighter Zero in Japan, if you've ever heard about that and been confused. Alpha, I think, is where, looking back in the past of the Street Fighter series as a casual, non-fighting game player, this is where they started to get really good, in my opinion. The animations are great, the style is great, some of the character portraits look really derpy, but I don't know, that kind of adds to the charm for me. It's not obnoxious, it's just kind of funny. Blanca looks fucking diseased in this. Basically, this Alpha 3 Upper is the version of Alpha 3 that most people play and enjoy, whereas Alpha 3 Max is the technically best version of it on the PSP that has a couple other characters added into it. I think it's got Ingrid, as well as a couple other ones that aren't in Alpha 3 Upper. But I don't know, Alpha 3 Upper, I'm not gonna say you need to go out of your way to play the PSP version. I've talked in the past about how this one was kind of a nightmare to get running on an emulator in terms of local versus play. I had to do this jank shit where I just explained this the other day, so sorry if I'm repeating myself, but I had to have 2 instances of the emulator open on my computer at once and connect to each other over the internet, even though they were both on my same computer, and then I had to hide one of the windows and have the other one up and be taking controller input from both of us. It was really, really weird. Definitely not worth it for like the paltry amount of extra content that's in that version. You might as well just play Alpha 3 Upper, especially now that it's on the Capcom Fighting Collection 2. So I would recommend these, I think. And what ranking do I give them? Playlist stopped working again, by the way. I don't know what I did to change it, man. I'm probably just honestly going to give these both the same ranking, even though technically Max, I would say, is the better experience, but it's harder to get running. I think it kind of just gets canceled out. Okay, Darkstalkers 3. Man, this is peak. I kind of think I like Darkstalkers more than I like Street Fighter, just as a casual fighting game enjoyer. Amazing style. I love the whole, like, it's kind of got that, like, anime-ified classic Universal monsters concept going on, and it's got a lot of really fun, interesting takes on classic, you know, horror concepts, basically. All the characters are brimming with personality, the animations are vibrant and expressive, the music is great, the stages are awesome. I'll never forget that one stage where you're standing on the side of a building. That is just so Kino. The characters are really great. There's lots of cool details. I like that Darkstalkers has a lot of those like transformation supers that I'm particularly fond of, where it's like you hit your opponent with something and it turns them into a different version of their character temporarily. That stuff's just so cool. Sorry guys, I got a frog in my throat today. So really fantastic. And I think it's kind of more accessible than Street Fighter in a lot of ways. This kind of just felt like one of those games where I could just kind of hit buttons and stuff would just happen in a very pleasing manner. I would honestly give this like a 9.5. One of my favorite excursions in the Street Fighter saga. Red Earth. This one was pretty cool. It's a single player only game. There might be mods out there that let you play it versus. Actually, no, I think there is is versus. You just can't play as the boss monsters. You can only play... There's a roster of 4 characters, so... doesn't make it necessarily the best multiplayer experience, but it is fun single player. Yes, it kind of gets bullshit at a certain point. You're basically fighting through the ranks of a bunch of crazy, weird, mystical creature bosses that vary from, there's like the crazy bird lady, there's the Nautilus demon Poseidon king, there's the big wizard with the 2 dragons following him around that was a huge scumbag. Tons of cool animations. I think it's got a lot of the same appeal to Darkstalkers, except it's a lot more single-player focused. This was from Capcom's Gem era, where they were fucking obsessed with, like, collecting gems. Power Stone is also gonna follow this trend. There's a bunch of shit about, like, knocking gems out of people and then picking them up on the ground. Kind of a different approach to fighting games, which I kind of appreciate. It's experimental, and I think that's neat. It kind of, I think, has like almost RPG elements to it as well, if I remember correctly, which is kind of cool. So definitely not your conventional fighting game. I don't even necessarily, I'm kind of on the fence about recommending it. I guess I'll recommend it, just because it's got a lot of... Hang on. Did you win? You won? She's nodding with sheer delight. She won her card event with a meme deck.
The strongest decks in the game with joke deck.
Nice. Holy shit.
It was the most satisfying play I've ever played in my life.
Nice. Can I get some pogs in the chat for Bella? Alright, Red Earth, I would maybe give like an 8.5. Oh, that song that I played was like... Was that unused track? Save file select, beta/unused, of course. Very cool. Okay, sure, get Sonic Mania OST in here. Okay, Power Stone. This is one that we just played the other day. We didn't play it for very long, we mostly focused on the second game, but this first one also, from what little I saw, has a lot of the charms of Power Stone to it. It's just kind of an arena fighter, top-down, kind of isometric style. I would compare it most closely to Smash Brothers, I think, like with items on, where it's just kind of a zany clusterfuck that, it's fun to just sort of mash buttons and experiment with a bunch of the different, like, environmental stuff and just figure out, a bunch of goofy shit that you can do with your characters, and there's, I think, lots of room for experimentation, too, with just like how do all these things interact, which is just fun. I don't think I would recommend this one because I think you should just play the second one basically. But the first one is fine too. It was like a 7.5, and then Power Stone 2 is just the improved version of that. Basically, much more characters. The levels are much more like the stages are much more involved. I really love all the stuff where the stages transition, where it's like, oh, suddenly you've fallen out of the airship and now you're skydiving. And you need to catch the umbrella or you'll take fall damage, or you're on the ship and now it rammed into an iceberg and now you're sliding around with everyone else on the iceberg. It's just a fun, zany kind of party fighting game. So would recommend. It's also in the Capcom Fighting Collection too, or you can play it on your Dreamcast if you got that. Give it like an 8.5, I think that's fine. Hedge my bets on that one. Project Justice, this is a deeply funny game. Kind of a huge roster in this. I wonder how big the roster was in the original Rival Schools, which was actually not on the Capcom Fighting Collection 2. I don't know why they did that. Maybe it's just difficult to emulate or something. I really don't know why they would skip the first one, but whatever. You would think they would keep that one in because it's got the Street Fighter connection because Sakura's in it, but whatever. I'm just a frickin' guy over here. I'm not the Capcom marketing experts. This game kind of has a lot of problems that stuff like Street Fighter EX has, in my opinion. Early 3D fighting games just have this kind of like slow, clunky, weird feel to them. And honestly, this might be a bit of a hot take. I kind of think even more modern 3D fighting games still have this weird, slow feel to them at times. But what Bella and I enjoyed tremendously about this game was the supers, the really zany supers where you like pick up your friends and slam them into the other guy, or you do like tennis practice on them, or you slam them in the head with a baseball bat. It's a bunch of zany shit. Some of them have like little quick time events almost, or little like mini games that you gotta play to avoid taking damage. Lots of really, really creative supers, and that was like the main source of enjoyment from this. Otherwise, it's like a competent 3D, 2.5D, I guess, fighting game. Again, I'm not qualified to really examine it on a deeper level than just I had fun mashing buttons and seeing a bunch of crazy, wacky supers. And the sheer amount of those wacky supers is really astounding, especially because I think depending on the different combinations of characters that you use, you can get different ones, because there's like these big team up attacks. It's really cool. It's really that was the coolest aspect of it to me. So let's give it like a 7.5. I think I'd recommend it. It's definitely fun to pick up at least once. If you're getting the Capcom Fighting Collection too, you might as well check it out. Plasma Sword Nightmare of Bill Stein. I don't think anybody's commented on it yet, but in the VOD that I posted the other day of Bella and I playing this, I labeled this section of the VOD Plasma Sword Confederacy of Nilpus, like Mortal 2. Just, popping off over my own stupid joke there for a little bit. This one, I also thought this one, kind of similar to Project Justice. It also was very zany and silly. It didn't quite have the same silliness factor, but I did like how many of the characters in this game were just total fucking freaks. I always kind of like playing as the freaks in a fighting game roster, and this is like a roster of 90% freaks, which I kind of appreciated. We didn't play too much of this one, but from what little I saw and experienced, it seems pretty fun, maybe a little unbalanced. It kind of felt like some characters were just like pure dog shit, and some of them were like extremely good, but maybe that's just me. It might have kind of a similar problem to like Samurai Showdown, where a lot of the people, it's called Plasma Sword. A lot of the characters have some sort of like ranged sword-esque weapon. A lot of huge disjointed hitboxes, which I don't think are necessarily something good to have in a traditional fighting game like this. I just don't necessarily think that like balance-wise it works out very well, but maybe it does if everyone has a sword. Maybe that's how Samurai Showdown works. I don't know. But Plasma Sword, I'd give it like a 7. It was definitely zany fun, and it also had that kind of quality where like I felt like I could just kind of press buttons and stuff would happen. It's on the fringe of getting a recommendation, but I'll be nice and give it a yes. Fellas, I might call it quits for now and save the rest of this for next time. I think tomorrow I will be playing Mosalina in the morning. There's a new Mosalina update that's gonna come out that has like new tools and shit that I'm really excited to play. And then maybe the day after that, I will be able to, I think, easily wrap up this list. Because I know it looks like, oh man, like you're so close, but these games right here are going to take ages to talk about. And these honestly are also probably going to take quite a while. So I think I will leave you with this for now. And we will truly catch up and be finished with this another day. I was kind of thinking at the beginning of this stream, I was like, maybe I'll get all the way done with like the list of ones that I've actually streamed, and then just wait to do this when I play more games and populate this list a little bit more, and I'll just, put this off for another time. But I was like, man, I'm sick of putting it off, and Bella's home, and I kind of just want to go hang out with her. It's getting late. So sorry, relatively short stream compared to the last few review streams, but we will. I'm also like coughing a lot. I just kind of want to rest my voice. So we will do the rest of these next time, and I think I will be able to comfortably finish off this list. So thank you for your patience. I know today wasn't the most exciting. It was basically just me saying the same things about PopCap games over and over again, and then just saying, I don't play fighting games, but over and over again with the Street Fighter stuff. Maybe this is a great reason why grouping these games together like this was a poor idea. But I hope you had fun. I hope you learned something. And we will pick this up next time. Is there anybody looking raidable? And maybe I'll prepare a little playlist next time. But who knows? I'm not really seeing anyone I necessarily really want to raid. What about shrimps? Let's go raid shrimps. /raid. If you've not seen this channel, you're gonna love it. It's exactly what it sounds like. Shrimps 24/7. I love that it's categorized, the Twitch category that they chose was ASMR. Shrimp ASMR. So go enjoy the shrimps. Mosalina tomorrow, and then, God willing, on Thursday or Friday maybe, I will actually finish this godforsaken list. Oh, I need to remember to take out the trash cans tonight. We missed recycling day 2 weeks ago, and so we've just been stacking up with recycling. I gotta go do that or else we'll have a real catastrophe on our hands. Okay, see you guys later. Enjoy the shrimps. I love you all. Goodbye.